Okay. Hello, welcome to the Newtonville Area Council. This is our last meeting of our term. And we have today Dana D'Agostino, Carolyn Gabay, Harvey Young, Laura DeVue, and Aline Samet. I know I saw her come by. So we do have a quorum, and we are all set to conduct business.
I don't see myself, but I'm here. I've got like five pages and I can't get on. I couldn't get on.
That's okay. I know, I see you pop up and then you go off. There you
there
are.
it is.
I see you now. It's a very strange setup on my Zoom. I don't have everyone like I normally do. But hello, welcome to our last meeting. Actually, it's Aline's last meeting as a council member. She's retiring from our our little council. So let's go ahead and get started. The first agenda item is the 2024-2026 Newtonville Area Council members. All of us, almost all of us, were reelected to a position, except for Aline, who did not run this year. And we also have Dan Cohen, who ran this year and was now on the council. So next year, starting off the year, we have 7 members. Is that right? 7 members, and then we do have 2 more open slots that we did not fill this time. So once we start the next process, the next term, we're going to have to go ahead and figure out how to fill those last 2 slots. As a housekeeping item, first, congratulations to the new members of next term. Before you can come and serve as a counselor in our meeting 2024, January 28th, I believe, you will need to go back to City Hall and sign the book and do your oath again. Jeremy Freiberg from Highlands was trying to get a ceremony together. I guess it's used to be done in the past. I don't remember. But for his council, they're meeting on January 4th, I believe. So there's no time for them to get all sworn in a meeting for the area council. So they're going to have to do it independently because Carol, the clerk, is taking a vacation from January 1st into that next week. So if something does change, plan on going to go sign the book in City Hall. If they do decide to have some kind of signing in or swearing in ceremony, I'll let you know, and you can go ahead and do it that way if you want. But I don't know, we'll talk about next year. So the second item on the agenda is the Craft Street 40B development presentation. We have Lexi, wherever she went, from Boston Properties, and we also have Andrew Capolati from Boston Properties, I see. And they are going to give an update on the 40B development that's happening. Originally, I think it was on, wasn't Crafts, it was the other one. Court, thank you, it was Court Street. Now that it's opening up onto Craft Street, the name has changed, so it's that's not the only thing that's changed, and I wanted to have a chance for our residents to get a look at what's happening in the future so that you will be prepared when it comes up for discussion and debate in City Council. So you guys can go ahead, and I believe you have the power to share the screen if you have a presentation.
Thank you. I'm going to pull it up right now.
Jennifer, is there a reason why not everyone is showing up? Like I heard you talking to Tariq, but I don't see him at all.
I see people, if they are not showing their video, there could be a reason that you don't see people who are on
No,
video.
you know what? He just popped up, so I don't know. It might be my. Okay, anyway.
Sorry, there's a setting that, this is Bonnie Rin, sorry to interrupt. There's a setting on Zoom where you can say, show people who aren't video on. And that's probably what you don't have
Okay.
that setting on.
Okay. Well, I've never had that issue, but it's all set now anyway. Thank you. Thank you, thank you.
Ooh, sorry.
Jennifer, you're on mute.
Sorry, Jen, are you, you're on
Sorry.
mute.
Yeah, no, yeah, you're ready to go. Sorry.
Okay. So hi, everybody. We want to thank you for taking the time to meet with us tonight. We know that it's right before the holidays, so I just want to give you guys a brief update on our progress with 78 Craft Street and show you a quick presentation showing you what we've designed. And then after that, I would love to hear from you guys and answer any questions you may have. So in October, we submitted our project eligibility letter to Mass Housing. And we received the approval from them on December 8th. We were, pleasantly surprised with how quickly that turned around. And we submitted for our comprehensive permit on December 12th. So we are actually currently scheduled for a ZBA hearing on January 10th. So this slide right here just highlights our team members and our key contributors to our project. And I just want to give a quick overview of our project stats. So our development includes 307 apartments. They will be a mix of studios, 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, and 3 bedrooms. There will be 10% 3-bedroom units here. We are also doing 20% of the units will be at 50% area medium income. And we have a 0.86 parking ratio here. So we have 263 parking spaces. This site is transit oriented. It's a 1/4 mile to the MBTA commuter rail Newtonville station and just a short walk to bus stops serving multiple routes. The site is also in close proximity to a lot of the amenities, including Whole Foods, Star Market, retail and restaurants, all the services available in the village of Newtonville. From a fiscal perspective, the project really brings great benefits to the city. It will increase the property tax by approximately 1.1 million annually. And then from a design perspective, we are doing all electric and committing to passive house standards. So this first slide here is just an aerial that shows the location of our site in context with its surroundings. So we have Craft Street over here to our east, and we have Washington Street here to the south. And just to give a little more context here, right at the bottom corner is Trio. So this is just a more zoomed in aerial of the site to give you a better view of the existing conditions. As you can see from this picture, it's all currently industrial use, equipment storage, auto body, and surface parking. Our site is south of the DPW, which is right here where my cursor is. And we are adjacent to a 4-story condo building here on Court Street, and we are just north of the approved senior living project that will be right where this bus parking is, which will be about 5- and 6-story building. So this is just a photo of the existing conditions as it is today. This is a view from Craft Street looking into our development. The site is mostly older industrial, like I said, older auto body shops and surface parking. To the left here, we have Roach Collision, and to the right, we have the DPW. And just to swing you around, this view is now at the back end of our property, looking east out to Craft Street. We have Fraser Engineering over here to our right, and now the DPW is to our left. So moving on to what we have designed, this is our site plan. Our site consists of 4 buildings and a 2-level parking structure. Building A here is a 4-story over 1 level of parking. Building B is 5 stories over 1 level of parking. And building C is 3 stories over 1 level of parking. And building D here is 4 stories with ground floor apartment units. The tallest buildings here abut the DPW. And then we step down the building heights as we move south of the property to create more of a village-like environment with the varying heights. The plan here is showing ground level, so you can see that the parking in the 3 buildings exists here. And then we have the pink areas which highlight the lobby areas to each building and the entryways. This here also is an amenity space as well as like a leasing office. Our primary entrance to the site will be from Craft Street, which will bring you down McGuire Court that continues throughout the center. And then we have this turnaround here, so vehicular traffic can go right back out to Craft Street for entry and exit. We do have access on Court Street here, and this will be primarily for emergency vehicle access only and pedestrian access. And we are going to be working with the fire department to make this as unobtrusive as possible and see what we can do with them. As you can see also, we have parking throughout the site, as well as the 2-level parking structure here for residents and visitors. This is the same site plan, just showing you the upper levels of the buildings to give you an idea of what our unit layout may be. The varying blues represent the different unit mix. So this is the first rendering here, and this shows the perspective as if you were standing at Craft Street looking into our development and what you'll see as you enter. We really listened to the feedback that we received early on from the neighborhood and designed more traditionally inspired buildings that really complement Newton's aesthetic and give a residential feel. This is another view of Building A, but from within the site on McGuire Court. This also shows here one of the 2 new courtyards on our site, but I'll touch on that a little bit later. So this perspective here is a little further deeper into the site. We're looking at Building B from McGuire Court. And this is a great shot because it shows you the roof form here of all 4 buildings feature a strong cornice line with shed and gabled dormers, which actually contain the top floor units. And this really helps reduce the appearance scale of each building and bring the eye down. And this view here is looking back out to Craft Street, and this gives you a nice close-up of what will be the entrance to Building B, where the 2-level lobby and amenity space will be located. So now we're looking at the second courtyard here located in front of Building B. This is kind of the center hub to the site and will be the outdoor amenity space. You can see here the use of different materials with the brick and the traditional clapboards really help add character to the building, as long as the balconies really help break it up. This is another view of that same green space, just a different shot. And majority of this green space that we're showing you will also be publicly accessible. So now we're at Court Street looking north into the site, and we have Building C here to our right and Building D here to our left with a view of Building B in the background. This is a great shot to just show how the different colors of the building and the varying heights really create that village feel I mentioned earlier. And we also have this new linear park on Court Street to our right that will be publicly accessible. So our landscape plan here shows how the site has really been designed to create a series of landscape courtyards with pedestrian pathways throughout the site. We are adding approximately 1 acre of green space with this development. We've really tried to create this connectivity throughout the site from Craft Street through to Court Street with new sidewalks and pathways for pedestrian and bicycles. And we've added some attractive landscape elements to activate the areas throughout the site to create a welcoming environment. In addition to the courtyards that we have at Building A and Building B, and the linear park that we have here on Court Street. We'll also be providing a dog park behind Building B here that will be publicly accessible. So now this is a view from Court Street. That you can see this is the existing view, and now this is going to be the new view with the linear park here on our right. And again, the 3 buildings that you could see for development. This is the view from 53 Court Street. This building here is actually an existing condo building. And you won't be able to see any of the buildings from this view on Court Street. And this last view here is actually from 43 Court Street. I don't know if you can see the key up here, but it shows you where the angle is. And we provide this view also. It shows that you won't be able to see the development from this side of Court Street. And this last view is from 78 Craft Street. We have the DPW over here. And this will be the view on Craft Street of Building A here and Building B. And with that, we would love to hear any comments or questions.
Thank you. So the building that's all the way on the west side of the plot, that's just gonna be parking? Is it gonna look like a parking garage?
So this is
So,
going to
yeah,
be a 2-level parking structure.
Yeah,
So, and we are looking into adding solar canopies to here to have some covered parking.
but is it a surface parking lot or is it a built up parking lot?
It's a 2-level parking structure.
Okay, so like obviously you don't have renderings of that, but what is it going to look like? Because that's really close to all of those residents on that side. I'm just wondering what it's gonna look like for those residents.
So we don't have a rendering of it now, but what we are working on is we actually went out to Turner Terrace, Prescott, and Wilton to take some photos so we can provide those renderings. We're working on those now. We're hoping to have them soon.
Okay, and the other question I had is that you were talking about the linear park and the access onto Court Street.
Mhm.
And you used the word primarily. That would be primarily. What exactly does that mean? Does it mean that that it might be open at some points?
No, I'm sorry for that confusion. Court Street will be for emergency vehicle access only. We actually are discussing putting bollards here so vehicles know that they cannot enter or exit on this street.
Okay, because I think that is a huge concern for people that live on Court Street. And if there's even a perception that it might possibly be used, like, when it's move-in day or when it's it's crowded, like that might be a little upsetting.
No, we have discussed putting bollards here, and we're just working with the fire department to see what access they'll need, but it will only be for emergency vehicle access.
Okay, and how much parking do you say was on the lot again? I can't remember.
We have 263 parking spaces.
Okay, and how many? What is that per unit?
0.86.
0.86. Okay. Does anyone on the council have any questions?
I do.
Aline.
Hi, I have a couple questions, one of which, just bear with me, I'm not able to make Thursday meetings much, and so I've missed the last couple of meetings. The last thing I knew, there was a senior or assisted living center going in here. Did that fall away?
No, that's right.
I'm sorry.
No, I'm sorry, Jen. But
no, that's another property. If you can see on this map, see where all the buses are, Aline.
Yeah,
that is a property owned by.
Okay. I did think that that property abutted the DPW. That's why I was confused.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
It's confusing because now they're both called Craft Street.
Yeah.
Before you had Court Street and Craft Street, so even though they're very similar, still it was a little bit different.
Good.
This is now 2 Craft Streets.
Okay,
But I don't
get
know
it.
the status of that one. But that's
Okay,
that's
so thank you for that clarification. My
Yep.
that was clarification. My question was the accessibility through Court Street. I'm concerned, as Jennifer is. I did see the ballards that you had inserted into the pictures. can those be, do they have like emergency pull downs for automatic pull downs? Fancy gadgets that recess when emergency vehicles are coming, or how does that work?
So that,
Andy, I'll take that. Andrew Capolati, Boylston Properties. Good evening. So we're working with the fire department to see what they would like us to do, whether it's
Right.
a crash gate, removable bollards, that's sort of a to be determined. And that I think will fall away, or sort of that answer will present itself during the permitting process. There will be no access for
Okay.
anyone who lives in this property off of Court Street.
I think that's what I wanted to hear. So thank you for that clarification. I don't think it really matters what you do. But of course, it does make sense that in an emergency that the tenants can get out too. That to me would be critical. That it's not just, well, I don't know. I don't know emergency wise who would need to get out with their cars, but I would want to know that the tenants could get out if they needed to as well. So that's the first question. The second thing is I'm noticing the different levels. Seems like there's 4, 5, and 6 levels. I like the fact that you have the lower levels on the outside. It appears that some of the lower levels are on the outside peering in. Is that the case? Because it's hard to see from all the pictures. Can you point with your arrows as to which ones are 4, 5, and 6?
yes, so building A here, that's on Craft Street abutting the DPW will be
Yeah.
5. And then we have the center building here, that will be 6. And the 2 buildings over here will be 4 with 3 with 1 level of parking and 4-story here.
Okay, and I'm sorry, I didn't hear you say what was the first one on Craft Street.
This is a 5-story.
5, so it's 5, 6, and then 4 down below.
Correct.
Okay. Okay, and then my final question is, there's a lot of wires on your screen on one of the visuals. That was the one before 78 Craft Street. Is there any way you can pop to that?
In one of the existing
Yeah,
photos?
I'll tell you when to, yeah. There. Go back. These things that are popping up all over the place are horrible, nightmarish, and I'm hoping that the city of Newton, it's got nothing to do with you guys, it's what the city would eventually plan. I think that right there is a nightmare. It's obscene to look at. It's an accident waiting to happen, loss of power, whatnot. Are you going to be having underground wires? Is there any change? Is there any change to the existing, are there changes to the existing wires like that? So I'm done talking.
Aileen, we have nothing to do with the infrastructure that's off of our property. This is on Court Street.
No, I realize that.
So, but we have
But
nothing.
doesn't that feed you?
No, actually, all of our services, all of our electricity will come in off of Craft Street.
Oh, okay.
Everything will go underground.
Got it.
All of our electric, telecommunications, all of those utilities will be below grade.
Okay. Well, that's the end of my questioning. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Elaine. Carolyn, you had a question?
Thank you very much. Thank you for this presentation. And I want to say first, kudos on the election to go to all electric and passive house. Very forward-looking of you, very much needed in the community. I'm curious, as a matter of information, what impact that election to do that has on your building costs. I'm kind of trying to learn for other projects, if you will. But I appreciate very much that you've made that election and commitment.
Carolyn, it's sort of a question that is very hard to answer, primarily because we don't have a lot of cost history on this sort of move to all electric buildings, and then with the addition of passive house. What I will tell you is we're sort of assuming that it's 4 to 6% more expensive. We hope over time, as the contractors get better at this building type and some of the things that you need to do to construct passive house buildings, that those costs sort of modulate and start to come down. But in our pro forma, we've assumed roughly a 5% overall cost premium.
That's very helpful to know. It's not, I'm sure every developer dollar matters, but it's not an overwhelming cost. So that's really important to know. And I
Well,
know it has to do with the scale of a project because there's a
correct,
certain
correct.
fixed cost.
This is about $160 million development.
Mhm.
It's probably 105 million, 107 million in hard construction costs. So 4% on up is $4.5 to $5 million.
Right. Yeah. And I'm sure it is steeper for a smaller project and scales, but kudos again on having elected to do that before you're fully required. With regard to the mention of putting in possible solar canopies on the open parking areas, I'd just like to suggest that the solar canopies that are in place at the library and at the Newton North High School are really unattractive. And if you can do anything to make your solar panels, I'd love to see you do them. And I'm supposing if it's on top of a multi-story parking structure, they'll be less obtrusive, but anything you can do to soften their appearance would be wonderful, because the ones that I mentioned before are just really ugly. I mean, really bad. And where you guys have been really responsive to the notion of not putting in blockhouses and instead using the clapboards and using more interesting roof lines, which is also very much appreciated as responsive to the community. Don't screw it up with the solar panels. Do have the solar panels, but please use the same kind of commitment to appearance with regard to them, which I know is hard.
Duly noted. The ones in the commercial application tend to be much bigger, tend to be a lot taller. The solar canopies, we've done it on top of one of the garages at Arsenal Yards, and they tend to be more. They don't have to be as tall and can sort of feel and look a little more residential.
Well, and they can also just look like the top of a structure where you've come up off of the ground level, whereas the library and the Newton North High School are, right in your face. A suggestion to think about with the fire department in terms of the balusters and the barriers. One, if the blockage, so-called, can be moved up more towards Court Street, it will avoid people who turn in and then get confounded and confronted with having gotten to balusters that are way up that driveway, and then they turn around and go back. So that if it's more out on the street end, it's more likely to discourage non-emergency vehicles from using. And also, when the Ascend marijuana place was being designed, one of the things that they integrated into their design for the fire access and egress on the adjacent street were landscaping items that could be driven over in the need of access by an emergency vehicle. They get crushed, but how many times you're going to have that fire vehicle coming through, and that may add to the appearance and be something that can soften the perspective in addition to the balusters, instead of the balusters. Just something to think about. Also, with regard to your green space and lawns, appreciate that they're available for public use. These are only renderings, and I'm sure that's not a most mature landscaping plan, but they were pretty antiseptic. They weren't very inviting. Trees were not in evidence, and neither were colorful flowers or things like that, or seating areas that would make these spaces more conducive to actual use by the residents. I don't think too many people, maybe the dog park people, will be wandering around in there, but I don't think a lot of people are going to come over to partake of what looks like just sort of insets amongst buildings. But it would be helpful to make them more inviting with the landscaping plan. And then the last question I have or comment I have is I appreciated that you show, for example, this view that's up on the screen suggesting that the residents or the street people walking won't see these 5, 6-story buildings. I'm not really sure how that could be the case because we're looking here at a couple of 2-story buildings. It depends, I guess, on perspective and how far back. But it would be very nice if the project was not intrusive on the vision line and that if it did not obliterate the access to sunlight for the adjacent properties. Little challenge for you, but it just, I think if you're going to make this presentation and have neighbors feel more comfortable about it, if you can do something with the drawing in or showing the perspective or azimuth or whatever the right phrase is,
Sure.
so that if you're asserting that people won't see a 6-story building, 5-story, whatever it is behind this particular one and the other views, that'd be useful for you to try to, in quotes, prove it a little bit more. Because
Well, sure, and we can certainly do some additional views. A couple of things. One, all of these properties are south of us, so sunlight and those things aren't impacted. All of the shadow goes to DPW.
well,
So-
that would be awesome, and I think very much in your favor in terms of communicating with the community. If it goes to the DPW, that's fantastic and comforting, I think, to the neighbors.
It does, because that, due north is sort of over these buildings. And yes, it's a combination of perspective. And there's about a 10-foot grade change from Court Street down into our property. So you're
So you're more low-lying?
correct. Sort of at the Court Street driveway where you would have that emergency access. We're at about elevation 46 and our site is about elevation 37. So you're getting the advantage of about a 10-foot grade change. And then in this case, the distance from where we are here on Court Street to the 6-story building is probably 400 feet because that building was on the far side of the site. So you will just never see on this side of the site, those buildings. And again, it's a variety of different contributing factors.
Yeah, I think understandably the Court Street neighbors will want to feel comfortable about that. So you could perhaps integrate a little more of that into your presentation as you go through the process. But thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Laura, you have a question or comment?
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. This is helpful. 2 things. Last time you all presented, I asked about any mitigation that was being planned or any thoughts on any contaminated land that might be present because of the current use of the space. Has anything come up with that any concerns that might delay the work, anything of that nature?
So, Laura, we've done several borings in sort of along the way. We certainly did that during due diligence before we put all of these properties under agreement and put up 7 figures worth of deposit. So we feel comfortable, even given the uses. We have identified a couple of very small pockets of sort of petroleum impacted soil, which we will end up, once we own the properties and start construction, we'll mitigate and dispose of. But given the past uses here, whether it's automotive repair, contractors' yards, and even I believe a junkyard back in the day, the site is pretty clean, surprisingly so. So we feel very comfortable.
Okay. As far as parking is concerned, it makes sense that I'm not overly concerned with the ratio of parking spots to units. But I know, being that I live in the Trio neighborhood, there has been some issues with people from Trio who, let's just say, overcommitted with the number of cars that they have, and they use side streets for parking. Is there anything that's going to be communicated to potential renters about parking and the use of neighborhood streets?
I'm sort of surprised because I thought that Trio's parking ratio was well below what they constructed. So I'm surprised. They're roughly about 0.75, I think, is their ratio, and I know they constructed well in addition of one.
Mm.
I guess I can't sort of speak to how people are using the neighborhood.
Yep.
Yeah, we would certainly communicate to our residents that we think we're building enough parking so that
Right.
parking in other places to us won't be a concern. You know, it's important that we build enough, but it's also important that we don't build too much.
Mhm.
And that's a little bit of the sort of the Goldilocks parable here in creating parking.
Okay.
So I can't really sort of speak to what's going on in Frio, but that is surprising.
Yep, no, I'm simply saying it from a proactive standpoint, some kind of communication would be nice. Or at least allowing for people to understand that. And then my last question, and this is just out of point of clarification, for the units that you currently have at Arsenal Yards, how many of those are for affordable units?
Mhm.
Is there an affordability requirement there in Watertown?
Mhm.
And what does it looks like in comparison here in Newton?
Well, so in Watertown, we have 302 apartments. We are 15% affordable per the Watertown statute. 1/3 of those, so that's a total of 45 units. 1/3 of those 45 or 15 are at 65% of AMI.
Mhm.
The other 2/3 or 30 units are at 80% of AMI.
Okay.
Here, as this is a 40B, we are providing 20% or 62 units at 50% of AMI. So we have much deeper affordability here than we have in Watertown, and I think much deeper affordability than I think most other 40B projects, because you can do 25% at 80%. I think it's 80% of AMI.
Mhm.
So we chose to do the deeper affordability.
Great. Thank you very much.
Is there anyone else on the council who has questions before we open it up to public? But Carolyn has a question, then Aline has another question.
Thanks. I'll be quick. Just an observation. I suspect that the reason Trio residents use the street is the additional parking charge on top of very substantial rent. So they just don't shell out some more. I'm curious, what do you anticipate the rough rent range for these units to be for the market rate units?
For rent or for parking?
Well, both, if you know it, but I mean, I know it's early days, but just
Yeah,
what's your target?
It's early. Our rents, you know, in our pro forma, our rents have mirrored Trio's rents. That's a competitor. That's the submarket. And to be honest with you, I don't remember what their market rate rents are.
So I know
I'm
they go
sorry,
up
did
to-
you say Trio?
I did, yes.
because I think they go up around 4s and 5s, and then they levy a couple $100 charge on top of that for parking. So I think that may be why people are parking on the street as you know, $5,000, $60,000 a year is a big nut. Have you got any impression, and this will be my last question, any impression of what the current tax roll receipts are to the city presently, and then what you anticipate the rent roll, the tax roll contribution from the project will be to the city? And of course, we have to, you know, there are costs associated. I'm just saying, how much taxes do you think the project will end up paying to the city?
Those are very easy numbers. The existing 11 parcels today pay just shy of $140,000 per year.
Yep.
In property taxes. We will pay approximately 1.25 million a year. It's just shy, I think, of a 9x increase in the taxable income to the city.
And has your pro forma been included in any filings yet? Is there a link?
No, we don't. We had to do it for the Pell application. We had to sort of fill out Mass Housing's baseline pro forma, so that is available.
If you could send the link to that, that would be fabulous. Thank you for your time.
Aline, do you have a follow-up question or comment?
Yeah, number one, I just wanted to say that I did like the way, I forgot to mention, I did like the way your lower levels for the garage were very unobtrusive. So I like that. Thinking that maybe that, here we go with all our great suggestions, thinking that maybe that could be carried over to the garages. And when you put a roof on it for solar, it might just look like a building and not just a bunch of cars. But I don't know what is the appropriate thing to say or do. I'm just saying that I just like the way that the lower level looked really clean. And then my second thing, Carolyn already touched on it, but I guess my question is, I don't understand all the legalese and what a pro forma is. I mean, I do, but I don't know all the details. So in layman's terms, in just regular language, are we saying that 5,000 for rent is considered low income or moderate income?
No. Those are the market rate rents.
That's a market rate.
Those are
Okay.
the market rate rents.
Okay.
The affordable rents, which we all have to remember, are subsidized by the market rate rents, right? The
Right.
affordable rents are probably at 50% of AMI, are probably start probably at $1,200 and probably go to 1,500 or 1,600.
Okay, so if a single mother or
Yep.
father is making about $50,000 a year and they
Yep.
have one child, they should be in a 2-bedroom. What is their rent gonna be about?
You know, I don't have all of the math in front of me, but they are expected to pay 30% of their income.
30%. Okay,
30%,
That's-
and
that's
then it's
good.
a formula, and then and we provided sort of a utility reimbursement,
okay.
and they don't pay for parking, and so it's. you
Okay,
know,
no, I understand. That's all I was looking for. So thank you very much, Andrew.
you're welcome.
Yeah, that information is, I think that information is not set by the developer, it's set by the city and the state, so it's.
No, I
it's-
understand, but that's just language you can't get from anyone once the building has gone up, or maybe it's there and I just don't know where to find it. Thank you. Someone just posted something. I will go look and appreciate the answers. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. I just have 2 quick questions and then we're gonna open it up. I know poor Lisa has been waiting for a long time for us to finish. What is the unit mix in terms of studio, 1 bed, 2 bed? Do you have that yet, or have you not put the unit plans together?
He had it.
Yeah,
No, we
okay.
haven't.
I
we have
think I missed that one. And then, are you having any public amenities in this space, or is it all private? Like any retail, like Trio has retail on the bottom. Are you having any retail or anything come into the site, or is it all going to be?
No
Okay.
retail. This is not a good retail location.
Okay.
All of our public amenities are the outdoor spaces, and obviously anything inside the building is from a security standpoint is a private amenity to the resident.
Okay. Okay, so thank you. Lisa, you have a question or a comment?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for the presentation. I'm a resident in the back neighborhood, so I'm south of Watertown Street, and this is the first I'm hearing of this project. I was concerned when I heard about the senior project, particular to vehicles entering and exiting the property. And so with you folks being adjacent to that project, I was wondering what traffic studies have been done. And someone mentioned that this was opening on to, is it Court Street? And then it was changed to Craft Street. And if you could please just tell me a little bit about the background on that. Thank you.
Well, sure. So we are in the midst of preparing our traffic study for submission to the city, which would be part of the ZBA sort of review process. We fully expect to be peer reviewed by the city and another traffic engineer. Not only will we be peer reviewed on traffic, we expect to be peer reviewed on stormwater. And lately the city has been peer reviewing the architecture. So we expect that when we go in front of the ZBA in January, that's sort of the commitment that they'll ask us to make, and we're fine with making that. Back when the project was sort of first proposed, we didn't own or didn't have under control any of the property that is sort of out front, Lexington kind of circle, all of that stuff there was controlled by a gentleman named Bob Hart, who has his business there, and we were going to have to do one of two things: bring people over McGuire Court, but we didn't really sort of control that into McGuire Court with some easement language that would have made that a little bit more problematic. And so that traffic was going to have to come in and out Court Street, and that is so by putting this additional parcel or parcels under agreement, we were able to sort of turn our back and not put that traffic onto what is a very small one-way residential street, which unfortunately gets you to exiting court at Marty's and having to take a left or a right onto Washington Street. Much more dangerous situation, especially if you want to go left on Washington Street. You got to kind of come across 2 lanes of traffic. So that is that's how this project has sort of evolved since we first put a couple of the parcels under agreement. So if you think about it, we sort of put the back parcels under agreement, didn't think we were going to get anything out front. We're able to secure things out front after 7 or 8 months of negotiation. We've now turned this into a sort of a Craft Street facing project, and which allows you to take a left or a right and get to 2 signalized intersections at either Watertown Street or Washington Street.
So I'm sorry, have you done a traffic study?
The traffic study is in process.
In process. Okay, and in terms of the senior center, I know there's been some slowdown on that development. Is that going to be considered, or you're right adjacent to it? They're coming, into the pipeline of building as you folks are, and how does that work together?
Lisa, unfortunately, I'm having a very hard time hearing you. I don't know if it's just me or if it's others.
I apologize. I was just asking about the 2 projects, with the traffic studies. Is each project looked at independently in terms of the traffic study, or does then the city look at it and see that they're adjacent to one another and that the 2 properties nearby is going to cause a lot of traffic in that area?
So our traffic study will take into account their traffic study and what they have done. And each subsequent traffic study sort of builds up upon the other. We don't look at our traffic in a vacuum. So they are now an approved project. They will be factored in, and we've done a bunch of traffic counts, so we know what the number of cars are on Fort Street. I'm sure they did a bunch of traffic counts. So the thing, they are not looked at in a vacuum.
Okay, that's what I asked. Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Wright.
Thank you. I just want to make some clarification on Trio. So there was built to 1.25, I believe, parking spaces per unit. Their absolute lowest 1 month was like 0.75, 0.79, but it typically ranges in the 0.9 to 0.98 parking spaces per unit. And they did have a problem at the beginning where there's free parking in the surface lot and people were parking there instead of paying for parking underneath. But I believe they threatened towing, and so more people complied and started paying for the parking underneath. Thank you.
Thanks for clearing that up. That's kind of where my question for whether it was going to be public amenities or retail in the spot, because that I think kind of screws up the whole parking issue anyway, which may lead to people leaving on the other side. But thank you for clearing that up. Tariq, sorry, Councilor Lucas.
No, Tariq is fine. That's my name. Andrew, question for you, or Lexi. Building C, I think that's the horizontal one. Yeah, that one. Do you know the distance between that building and the property line?
That is 20 feet off the property line.
20 feet?
20.
Okay, all right. And what about building, I presume, D?
I believe D is 20 on the south side, and I believe it's a little bit more on the west side.
Okay. All right. That's all I have for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Norton?
Thank you all, and appreciate the Boylston Properties folks making the time tonight. And we've already had the meeting at Horace Mann, which was very helpful. I won't repeat myself, but I'm still, well, I guess I will repeat myself. I'm still disappointed that this is all rental, and particularly if folks go to the link that I put in the chat, you can see the rents are pretty high. And I did raise earlier, and I still think it would be advantageous for this project to daylight part or all of the culverted stream that is underneath the property. That would help with, be a wonderful natural amenity and improve water quality in the Charles River, and could, I believe, help with flood mitigation. So that was my comment. Now my questions are, what sort of amenities are there besides a living space for the folks who are going to be moving in? Like, you know, I think as someone commented, there's green space, but it just sort of looks like a big lawn. The dog park, that sounds good. Is there plans for a playground? Because I would imagine there'll be a lot of children moving in. Is there a community space, game room? When I had a condo years ago at the West Natick commuter rail, there was a community room and a swimming pool, which doesn't look like there's plans for a pool. So anyway, I just wanted to hear about what the amenities are for the folks who are living there, even if
Sure.
those amenities aren't going to be available to the public.
We haven't really sort of thought about what the amenity package will look like. I will tell you that what we're seeing a lot of demand for these days is work from home space. We do a lot of sort of what I would consider to be WeWork areas. This sort of large salmon colored area is a 2-story sort of amenity space. We always do a fitness component. We always do some sort of club room, kitchen, you know, where there can be, you know, cold brew coffee or things like that. You know, the 2 landscaped areas that you see, the design on those aren't done, and we're in the middle of sort of programming those, and have challenged our landscape architect, the guys at Greg Lombardi and Associates, who I think are very good at this stuff. For example, same thing with the linear park that you see, that sort of kind of running along the Craft Street driveway. None of that stuff has been finished and will be, and there'll be some robust design. We haven't sort of thought about a playground, although we know that there are, you know, within walking distance, several parks and schools, I think, that may meet some of those requirements. So some of that stuff, Emily, is still up in the air. But the indoor stuff, you know, back in the day, I don't do swimming pools anymore. The problem, you open them on Memorial Day and you close them on Labor Day, and they just don't get up. You know, they look great when they're full. They look awful when they're empty. You know, we tend to do, I've done golf simulators. I've done movie theaters. We've done game rooms. But a lot of the demand these days is for, you know, sort of the ability for you to leave your apartment, go into the amenity space, have access to a variety of different things, and really work from home. We do printers and copiers and things like that for our residents, so they can be more productive. So
No, that sounds great. I wasn't requesting a pool. There's going to be a brand new pool very close by. I do think that something for some sort of play area for children, that would be something I would lobby for, but everything else sounds great. Thank you.
Thank you.
We had a suggestion in the chat from Laura regarding the high schools and teen students that might possibly want a teen space or a study space for the family units that you're going to have. And Eileen has a question and wants to know, do you know what elementary schools will receive these new students?
You know, I don't know the answer to that question. We can find out. I don't know how, you know, how the city sort of apportions that. I would imagine Horace Mann.
That's what I was thinking, but you never know with the city. They could be bused down to like Oak Hill. You never know where people are going to go sometimes. But I would assume Horace Mann unless it's full. And then maybe Cabot is the other, because they're right across the way.
Could be Cabot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, there's some people across the way that are Cabot, but
Yeah.
it's on the border, so I think it could be either.
There's also the other school that's down Pearl. I can't remember where that school is. Lincoln Elliott?
That's Lincoln Elliott.
Yeah.
Or Jackson.
What's Jackson?
No, I'm sorry. It's on Jackson Street. Is that Lincoln Elliott?
That's Lincoln Elliott.
Okay, sorry, yeah.
So it looks like it might be in between one of those three school districts. And then depending on what happens, they'll go from there. Do we have any other questions? David, do you have a question? Or you just have your hand raised? Okay.
Yeah, no, I have a question. Thanks.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for the presentation. Very informative. Just building on Councilor Norton's comment on the desire to have more ownership opportunities. Just curious, what would need to be true in order for there to be some of these units go from rentals to ownership? And yeah, just how can we think about that more generally as something to
Well,
further?
so David, we are not condo developers. It's a different financing model. It's a different tax model. It's a different it brings into different design elements. It requires more parking. You know, I certainly agree that there is more opportunity across the city for more for sale homeownership, but that unfortunately is that's not something we do. You know, it's just a much different product. So.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, just echoing the sentiment, something that we need more of in the city, but thanks for that explanation.
Is that it?
Wait, do we have any other questions? No. Before
Did Pam have a question? Pam was waiting for some time. I don't know.
no, she's answered a question. Can you please unshare your screen?
Sure.
I'm gonna go ahead and share the rents. Can everyone see that? This is. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Someone is talking.
Yeah, yes, we can see your screen and yes.
Okay, thank you. So this is the link that Emily shared. I just wanted to put it up so that everyone can see. These are the this is the AMI rental that we talked about before, and these are the studio down here, or sorry, the market rate, which is a comparative rate to everyone else in the market. So Treo and what do you call it? Austin Street, I'm
Austin
sure
Street,
is in that
correct.
mix. I'm sure you probably have talked about Northland and all those other places around here that have the same, that will have the same kind of rents going on. But just wanted to make sure everyone had seen that. Does anyone have any questions after seeing that? No. Okay. Well, thank you very much, everyone. Andrew and Lexi, I really appreciate you coming in so close to Christmas. I'm sure you guys want to get out and go celebrate the holidays. You know, everyone's definitely, hold on, I'm trying to mute here. There we go. But thank you very much for coming in, and I do appreciate it. I think we've seen this presentation. I think I've seen it 3 or 4 times already. I've been to the site with you guys, and I do appreciate the fact that you guys are willing to communicate with us and come in and talk with us and listen to our complaints and suggestions and hopefully make it a better project for you and Newton. So thank you.
We're always happy to talk about the project. So happy holidays, everyone.
Right,
Excuse me,
thank
I
you.
had a question about parking.
Oh, I'm sorry, Fran.
And I live on one of the streets that's adjacent to Crafts, south of Watertown Street. And between the two projects, neither of them have parking. Like the elderly housing, I am very concerned because a lot of, people assume that most of those people won't drive, but having had my own experience with my my parents, they did for quite a long time in assisted living, even in assisted living. And then there's the whole issue of their, all the staff. And they're gonna be parking in our neighborhood. So then you add this, and every unit is not gonna have parking. And, you know, if you're expecting this to be transit oriented, you better think twice. I mean, you know, I was not able in the 40 years that I have lived in Newton to be able to commute on the commuter rail because the hours were so crazy. It's non-existent. You can't use that if you don't work 9 to 5. And I think, you know, the city needs to think about this and maybe another level of parking go in to accommodate more cars so that I don't feel like I'm living on in a parking lot.
Okay, we appreciate that comment, Fran. Thank you. For good.
Jen, I
I'm not
think
gonna let you leave yet. Carolyn, do you have one more thing?
This is actually, Andrew, you'll be happy to hear more question for our counselors than for you. So is there some way in which a parking placard could be used for resident parking? That's what they do in Cambridge. And guests get a little placard to put in their windows. And that addresses the staff parking issue, which facilities should provide staff parking rather than expecting the neighbors. And this is for the facility, Andrew, not really your place, but for the assisted living facility, there is going to be a host of staff there. And they're going to want to park for 8-hour or more shifts. And so is there a way we can have resident parking for the streets and resident parking stickers, at least on some of the narrower streets like Court and a few of the surrounds where people are not unlike what we have near Newton North, where there is limited parking adjacent. So that was my question for our counselors.
I can answer that. We can do that. I will tell you that it has its own inconvenience because your visitors sometimes might get ticketed. So there have been neighborhoods who've started to request it, and then when they looked into it more, decided they didn't want to do it. It is also more of a cost on the city to have to set the program up and then enforce it. That's come up for discussion as part of the wider conversation about the winter overnight parking ban. So it's absolutely something that can be done. And you do see it more in areas that do have cities that have more parking and competition for parking. So if it comes to that, that's certainly something that could be looked at and implemented.
Great. Okay. One last question. I promise Lexi and Andrew can leave. What is the process now and what is the timeline? Where are you in the process and how long?
Well, we're at the beginning of the process. So we filed our comprehensive permit, as Lexi said, in December. We have our first hearing with the ZBA on January 10th. I would expect that we will be in front of the ZBA for several meetings over several months. My sense is that they, on January 10th, will ask us to sort of undertake several peer reviews that I talked about: traffic, stormwater management, and probably design, which will probably send us away for approximately 60 days would be my sense. So I'd say we'd open it up in January. I would imagine we'd be back for another meeting in March, and the way that these things sort of go, sometime in 2024, probably the fall of 2024, I'd like to think we were through the process and approved. And as you know, all of those ZBA meetings come with the ability for the public to make comments, positively or negatively. But if we're going to say something positive, please show up. And so that's sort of the process. So, again, the city, I think, and the city and the planning and the ZBA, I think, have a pretty robust sort of hearing process that will adjudicate a lot of the things that we've talked about here tonight.
So if all goes well, you're hoping to be in the ground fall of 2024 and constructed,
No, if we get approved, if we got approved in,
and then you design?
let's say we get approved in September.
Yeah.
2024, we probably need somewhere in the neighborhood of 6 to 8 months to do construction drawings. Got to do construction documents, got to get a firm price, got to go out and get financing. So that process, we start to run the financing process as we're working on drawings. So I'd like to think that we could break ground in the middle of 2025.
And then be occupied in 27?
And roughly 24 months of construction, correct.
Got it. Okay, so thank you for the timeline. I think, people see you here and think it's gonna go in the ground tomorrow, and
No, these things,
long,
unfortunately.
long process.
It is
It's
a
even
long
longer than
process.
I thought it would be, but thank you.
Well, and you see what's sort of happening on other projects, things that
Yeah.
have been approved for a long time, and then financing has been very, very problematic lately because of interest rates. And so unfortunately, these things do, even though they get approved, sometimes they're difficult to get into the ground. So
Yeah.
we're
Right.
cautiously optimistic.
Okay. Well, great.
Alright.
Well, thank you so much for your presentation. Appreciate you coming in, and if anything changes, let me know and I'll have you back again.
Sounds great.
Well, thank you, everyone.
you.
Thank
Merry
you.
Christmas, Happy holidays.
Happy holidays. Okay. Okay, so I wanted to move on to the next agenda item, which is construction updates across Newtonville. We have a couple projects. I just wanted to give people updates in case they haven't been paying attention or not aware of what's going on. The first one is the Gath Pool. I don't know if anyone's driven by Albemarle, but they are the old pool is out. They were putting in a new front sidewalk. They had some piping to go in. They had some new sidewalk and ramps to go in the front. In the back, they have put up the forms for the two new pools. So those are going to get poured sooner rather than later. And if all goes well, it looks like it's going to open for the summer. So it looks like that's all progressing. Horace Mann, they are in the stages of design right now. And again, if any counselors know more than I do, let me know. I've seen the plans to have an addition. The addition is going to put on the north side of the building. They seem to have avoided the sledding hill so that people can still use that as a sledding hill. But they have extended it to that side of the property. They still don't have their playground though, which is a little concerning because I know they've kind of been without one for a while. But I'm wondering if that's hopefully going to go in at some point. The New Cal is the last update. The final bids came in December. Originally the bids came in September, and they were like at 30 million. Excuse me. The bids came in again after working the numbers and trying to get sub bidders, and it came in at 24 million. So they're in the process of contracting with a construction company, and it looks like demo will start either this winter or early this spring. So that's going forward in that. So I think that's all that we have in our neighborhood. Does anyone else have any other construction things that are going on that you know of that I missed? Carolyn?
Not really something new, but I do think it's pretty striking that nobody seems to blanch noticeably at the fact that the senior center is 1/3 more expensive than whenever they were planning all of this. And part of that may be increase in financing costs, supply chain, yada, yada. But part of it strikes me as a failure of planning and realism, and that the building turned into sort of a Tazewell mansion. And the classic Tazewell project is, as long as you're doing that, might as well do something else. And so this is a Tazewell project that grew like topsy, and now it's going to cost us 1/3 more than as advertised.
But Caroline, I know that the programming and the size and the design hasn't really changed. It's the environment and the construction environment has really, again, I see it from the other side of the process, and just trying to get sub bidders to bid in, like the construction companies could not bring it down to the price that it was estimated at. And it's far over the estimate, and it's because of the COVID shutdown and then the construction frenzy and not having enough bidders or workers. Like it's just I think I've seen everything. That's why these developers are stopping, because they can't get their stuff in on price.
No, I understand that, but this is the 4th year of COVID. I mean, somewhere along the line, people probably should have been giving the community an update in the planning department and the building department, not talking about your end of it, but the planning department should have been planning. The planning department seems consistently steadfast in its refusal to plan for anything. They will not give any build outs. They won't give us models. They won't give any data on impacts on school, impacts on infrastructure, impacts on taxes. And now they didn't keep a bead on the fact that this project is going to cost, this one project alone is going to cost a full 1/3 more than anticipated. And so it shouldn't have come as this kind of a surprise. And the fact that nobody is raising much of an eyebrow freaks me out as a taxpayer.
Councilor Wright, do you have a response to that or clarification?
Actually, I have something else. So I don't know if any of the other councilors want to talk about that. I know it has been discussed, but I don't have the details. I don't know if Emily or Tariq want to add to it, but I wanted to talk about a couple other things happening in Ward 2.
No, okay. So, Caroline, I think, I don't think I've heard anyone complain about it. And I think the fact that it came in at 30 million and they're like, oh, now we're saving money by being 24. I think that was kind of
the idea that
like when you buy something on sale and it's like, oh, I saved $100. You just spent 200. Like,
I mean, I think the way it is being marketed and spun is ridiculous. That they say, oh, we only got one bidder, and then they flaunt that when they put it out to rebid, they saved $7 million over what the sole bidder is, but then they fog over the fact that the whole thing costs 1/3 more than planned is offensive.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything about it, so Aline?
Just to follow up with Carolyn, this is one of the big beefs I have. I just do not understand. And it's not, I know this is not just Newton. I don't understand why there are not checks and balances going in and out of systems in cities, in towns, and money being spent. And I agree, it's like 4 years after COVID, but you know what, Carolyn? It's not going away. That's just going to be the excuse for whatever. And I don't know who's going to stop this ball from rolling, but there are no checks and balances. And I'm so frustrated with our politicians that just talk and talk and talk. And that's why I can't be on this committee anymore.
Councilor Norton, do you want to respond to that? Or do you have a?
Yeah, I mean, I hear what you're saying, Carolyn, but I don't think it's any mystery that we do have construction cost increases all over the country, including here in Newton. We have several construction projects that have been approved and we're all waiting. Dunstan East, I'm sure I don't need to tell you about all of the others. So it doesn't seem all that shocking to me that the experience we're having with the senior center. The city has been keeping the counselors updated about all of this. So it may not be that all of the residents are aware, but this, we have been being kept apprised by Josh Morse for what it's worth. I do appreciate that they went back out to bid when they were surprised with the one single one. So I agree with you. It is unfortunate to see the cost increase. Not the first time Newton has seen cost increases in building projects, not gonna harken back to what we were known for many years. For many years, you couldn't leave the boundaries of Newton without people saying, oh, you're from Newton, let's talk about your high school. So, and for those who have been listening to the Big Dig podcast, very entertaining. The cost there did escalate a bit. So this is not, the first time it's ever happened in the history of the world, which I know you weren't suggesting it is. So I agree with you, but if we're going to build it, like what's the alternative? I don't think I don't think there's anything inappropriate going on. I'm not sure, Aline, what you were getting at there in terms of not checks and balances. I do feel like we do have checks and balances. I feel like in this case, we're just subject to the market forces like everyone else is. So I hear you. It's unfortunate. I mean, I sat through a finance committee meeting recently where we're forced to spend, we are having to dredge the city hall ponds. And when we last did it 10 years ago, it was $450,000. And now the bids came in at the lowest one was 3 million. So there's a little bit mystifying as to why that is. And there was more than one bid. So anyway, I feel your pain, as a taxpayer, feel the pain, but I don't know. I don't feel like the city is doing anything inappropriate or that we have a whole lot of options.
And I guess I used the wrong word, checks and balances. I'm so flummoxed by not passing the override, but suddenly finding $30 million. And I get frustrated and I don't listen to the rest of the story. So I don't have enough information to make statements sometimes, but it's so frustrating to me. That's all. Thank you.
And Councillor Norton, while I'm glad to hear that the councillors weren't surprised, the community, at least those of us who were tuned in, did not receive any updates that prices were escalating. Yes, we all know construction prices are going up. And yes, we all know that the rubble field is the rubble field because of construction costs. I'm not so worried about what happens to the private contractors. That's the business they're in. But I am tuned in to all of the emails from Josh Moore, and there was never a hint until, we only got one bidder. And then the next thing said was, we went out to bid again and we saved $7 million. And then you read the mayor's update and it's like, guess what? It's going to cost a full 1/3 more than what was scoped when we went through this long community project. And I don't think when we went through the long community input process, it should have been any secret in the world that there were construction increases anticipated. And I just think it was a terrible job of budgeting by the city officials. I'm not saying the city council, I'm saying our alleged planning department, which is pretty wretched. That's my perspective. The planning department steadfastly fails to plan. It steadfastly refuses to plan. And if it were me, I would steadfastly can a bunch of people. But that's just my view.
All right. I have no more comments.
Thanks, Carolyn. Councillor Wright, you have a new topic.
That okay, so Dunstan East should start January. They're going to start drilling pilings for not sure how many months. Most of it is along Washington Street. It's going to be 3 to 4 years. They're going to do buildings 1 and 2, which is closer to Dunstan Street first, and then they'll do building 3, which is closer to the Armory next. I'm also on the Washington Street pilot program. More will come out. We internally took a look at the survey, and the good thing is what people wanted and what the experts wanted is pretty much the same thing. So that's going to be good. That timelines, more information on that will be out in the next month or so, and they'll do a final selection. Preliminary design February through March, city review in April. In this summer, final designs, and then they'll start the project in the fall. And it's a long-term temporary project of 10 years, which to me, I haven't seen a temporary project for 10 years. So it seems very long, but that's where that is. And that's going from Lowell Street to Chestnut Street. So it's basically 1 lane in each direction with some parking and turning in the center. And I think the 2 bike lanes will be on the south side of the street next to the Pike. But it's not finalized, but that's where it's kind of heading.
Speaking of the Armory, have you guys had any updates on that in city council?
No.
I feel like that's kind of fallen off. I haven't heard anything about it.
Well, generally, because it's, you know, all affordable, they have to get their money from a lot of different buckets. And so I think it's still in that financing part of stage, state, federal, you know, they're getting some from Newton, the whole bit. So that takes a long time. That's why when you get all affordable housing, it's a long process. And a lot of it has to do with the financing.
Okay,
And
I just hadn't
usually
heard anything about
if
it.
we get an update, we in Ward 3 should get an update first because it's in our ward, but I haven't heard anything.
Okay. Councilor Norton? Oh, you're muted.
Sorry, I just wanted to say one more thing in response to the previous comment. I didn't want to make it seem like I was necessarily agreeing with Carolyn in the comments about the city staff. Even if I disagree with them, you know, I do very much respect the work that especially I just gave my little farewell speech the other night and I gave a big shout out to the city staff. So I very much understand that sometimes people do get frustrated with various decisions that the city makes and so forth. But I would just ask us to just keep in mind, they really do work very hard. And anyway, just wanted to make that comment. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, can we close the books on this agenda item? No other comments? Dana, are you still with us? Hi, Dana.
Hi, guys. Hi.
Hi. So I know this is way far after the event, but we didn't ever get a chance to talk about Village Day. And I just wanted to do a quick recap of what worked and what didn't work and what you're planning to do with the senior center being under construction next year. Because you're gonna have to start planning, or we are gonna have to start planning again, pretty shortly after the new year. So it's already time to start thinking about September.
Yep. So last year, we did plan for the construction, and we spoke to Josh at the planning department, and it wasn't a problem. I don't know if anything has changed, but our concern was the construction fence, how far it was going to come out, if we could still have access to the sidewalks. And our other concern was we needed electricity for the band. And Josh said that if we couldn't get it through the building, depending on how far they've gotten, there'll be a construction tent that we can get electricity from there. So we should be in good shape with that. I just haven't had a chance, but in the next month or so, I'll check in with planning department, just see if anything has changed. So that's good. Regarding the good and bad, there's a whole bunch of good this year. And I think I'm going to start with the help that we got from the football team, setting everything up and taking everything down, putting up the tents with the weights and kind of running up and down the street. We've done that before, and it's a lot of work. And this year, we had the help of the football team. I think we might have had, I don't know, 20 guys in the morning and, 15 or so breaking down after the event. So that was really good. The other good thing is that we had a ton of people. I was worried because of the rain date that it fell on Columbus Day weekend, that people weren't going to show up, but they did show up. And what else is good? We had a good mix of booths this year. The businesses also, most of them did very well. And for the first time we had Cabot ice cream had a booth, which was great because what they did is they wanted to initially to give out free ice cream, but we were worried that this would take business away from the other vendors if they did that. We had a lot of other vendors that offered desserts and So we were worried about that. So they decided to donate all the proceeds to the Boys and Girls Club. So they found a really good solution for that. So a lot of good. The not so good was a bit frustrating with the police. I know the area council knows this, but 2 years ago, we were told that there's no more detail, so that we had to hire policemen and pay for them. Which I understand, I understand, but the bad thing is we don't know until the morning of the event, if we're actually going to get policemen to help us. We had about 4,200 people at the event this year, which is crazy. And to think that we would not have any policemen there just doesn't make sense to me. So that's something that we really have to work on. Getting confirmation that we're going to have the police there earlier. And I don't know. What else? Oh, we had a rain out this year, so that was stressful. We had to change everything to another date. And that's about it. I'd love to hear, kind of what other people thought. I know it's so far in the past now, but if anyone had any, comments or anything that, they thought we could work on this year, that would be helpful.
Well, I want to give kudos to you and your team for being able to pick up from one day and completely switching it over to a brand new day. I mean, I think that took a lot of just last minute planning and moving and negotiating, and that's a lot to do a rain day. And I feel like that's the first time it rained on us in
like
many
6 years.
events. Yeah. Like you've
Yeah.
never had that problem before. So the fact that you were able to do that and not see a huge, I mean, it looks like 4,200, it's a little bit down from before, right? But it's not that much.
No. It was definitely up from the previous year. Yeah, definitely up. And so that's that's 12 to 4. So that's a lot of, people, coming through. So
yeah. So great.
Yeah.
Laura, do you have a question or comment?
Yeah, I think the day was really great. There was a couple things about what the vendors brought with them that I know Dana and her team were running around like cuckoo people with chickens without heads and all that, trying to make sure they could get the sandbags and that sort of thing. And I wasn't privy to what was communicated, but I think it would be super important to stress with vendors, bring your own sandbags, bring your own this kind of thing, because we just don't have that to hand out. I think this really goes to the counselors for suggestions on the aspect of the detail for police and what we can do in the future. I know I had some last minute conversations with Dana and with Carolyn about this. I made a phone call to a colleague who is the chief of public safety or police over at LaSalle, who used to work with me at Mount Ida. And he gave me kind of some background information as to what happens if they can't fill a detail and in the city, and that his team gets deployed if possible, but you don't want to do that in the last minute. And so I just think that there are certain aspects of this type of event that we know when it is, we know well in advance, we know, it runs with, not necessarily clockwork, but it's as close to clockwork as you're going to get. And we should be afforded an opportunity to get that on the books as soon as possible, and not have to wait. So I guess that we'd be looking to the counselors for some assistance on this so that we don't end up having a problem. I would hate to see a public safety emergency of any nature, whether it be a heart attack or it be somebody blasting through the pylons that are put up to keep people from coming down the streets, or anything worse. And so I think it's just important, and it's only a matter of good due diligence to the community to make sure that that's happening. And that sort of thing. I think there is some work for all of us in terms of the opportunity to raise awareness of, I know because of the fact that the date had to shift, some people just weren't able to make it. I had a great time with the Instagram and building up some Instagram pictures and all that kind of thing, which was fun. But I think there's always more we can do to raise the visibility of the area councils, especially in a situation where we know that the area councils need visibility and an opportunity for that. So just something to strategize for the future. But I think the thing we do need to spend the most time worrying about is public safety and making sure that public safety is addressed earlier rather than later.
And oh, so I was just gonna make a comment about now I just so we have to get permits for Village Day, and we do that in March, which is way ahead of everyone. So so that's why it's even more frustrating. And I always tell them we request 2 policemen, we need to have 2 policemen, and I'm telling them March. So you know, Tariq, if you could, you know, help us, or David, or anyone with that, just not to have to worry, you know, the morning of, you know, if there's going to be people showing up, would you know, lessen the stress. That's for sure.
Counselor Lucas?
Thank you, Jennifer. Yes, Dana, when you make the request to the chief or whoever, if possible, can you CC myself, Susan, and David, and Emily? Why not? Why not?
Emily's like, I don't think so.
She's trying to get out, Tariq.
No.
Don't drag her back in. She can be on the volunteer committee. Danny, you have a new member.
Also, Dana, great job with Village Day again. Thank you to the football team for helping out. And I still have some receipts to give you for the gift cards.
I was wondering about that. Yeah.
Just
Okay.
cleaning off my kitchen table, and what do you know?
Okay.
I still have them.
Yeah.
So it tells you how messy my house is. What Laura said earlier about telling all vendors to bring their own weights and sandbags. If possible, when you inform them, you could put a link to like Amazon or wherever where they could buy some weights, just so that we don't have to go to your house to fill up the sandbags again. And
Yeah.
it was fun, but that's all.
So we told them, and a number of times, and I don't know. The other thing is, you know, one of the people on the committee was saying, well, maybe we should just buy them and sell them to people. You know, we can just sell them at cost, and then it's theirs to keep, and we don't have to be the ones just kind of schlepping them back and forth and whatever. So we're thinking about different ways to do that. But the weights and the tent, and it was so windy that day too. We also had problems on Newtonville Avenue because of the wind. It was like a wind tunnel and everything. The tents are kind of flying around, so we're not sure if we're gonna have booths on Newtonville Avenue anymore. So, you know, kind of something to think about. We also we're thinking of a date of September 29th this year. We liked it a little later. And it also gives the high school a little more time to practice before they come out and play. So that's the date we're thinking of, and maybe have a rain date if we can the following, I think the 7th, October 7th. But our meeting won't be until mid-January. So I'll discuss it with everyone then.
Great.
Yeah.
Counselor Norton?
Yeah, I just want to pile on to the gratitude for Dana and the team, and just tell you that from my experience, Newtonville Village Day is the best Village Day. Also, I've never been to another Village Day, and I still am gonna fall on my sword to say that Newtonville's Village Day is the best Village Day. So that was one point. The other one to pick is the context around the police details, is that for many years, Massachusetts was the only state in the country that required uniformed police officers to do detail work, and that those rules loosened a little bit under Governor Deval Patrick. But here in Newton, we still largely require uniformed police officers to do that. And it's an important source of income for our officers. But it's longstanding been an issue that there have been street projects that we couldn't do and other problems because we didn't have enough officers. So then we loosened, and it's a negotiation with the police union. The rules were loosened slightly to allow retired officers, auxiliary officers. I do think this is an example of why the rules should be loosened a bit more. I mean, in other states, anyone that gets trained as a civilian flagger, it's called, can do this work. I just wanted to take this opportunity to alert all of you as to the bigger reason that we have this limitation in supply of officers to carry out these details for, purposes like this.
Thank you, Emily. Aline, you have a comment or question?
Well, you kind of took care of it. I'll take my hand down. I don't know if you've had a rain date before, Dana, but I think that I am so pleased that you've decided to move it out a little more. I do think that it's just ironic that we had so many people on that weekend because it was a holiday weekend. That, even to consider another, what did you say, the 27th?
I think it's September 29th, and then, but it's tricky with a rain day too. For example, like the train, you can't really reserve 2 dates because they're giving up, you know what I mean? So even if we have
I realize that.
But we were just lucky because
we were lucky,
people,
very lucky. And I
yeah.
can't say enough about you and your immediate left and right and forward center person who helped you. It's just amazing what you pulled off. Thank you.
But I wanted to thank you for helping with the train.
We'll have her back next year. Don't worry. She's not going anywhere.
I hope so.
Thanks to Carolyn for my whistle and my hats and my just made the day. Thank you. I want a better picture with Tariq next year.
One last question, Dana. In terms of financing or financial, how did we do this year versus other years?
We did pretty much the same. So we brought in more money, but we spent more money. I mean, everything went up considerably. From the cake, I don't even remember the cake, the policeman, we had a lot of expenses. So we consistently do about the same. We decided a while back that we wanted to put money back into Village Day, but we can readdress that because we had so many expenses this year, and it maybe next year, we might cut down. Tariq's not going to like this, but maybe cut down on the T-shirts because that was expensive, or you know what I mean, just. We had so many giveaways and everything. The trains were free, the T-shirts were free, the cake is free, the cupcakes are free. So, the only problem is everyone's expecting that now.
Yeah.
Right. So, but we'll, I think a while back, if we cleared like, $4,000 or $5,000, we were happy with it. And I think we did the same this year. I'm still waiting for a couple of people to give us, me some, some receipts, but I should have that in January. Yeah, Tariq.
Good. I just, because we have been spending a lot of money.
Yeah.
I just, it concerns me that if we're not bringing it in Village Day, that, we'll miss the opportunity to spend money on things that are needed in the future. So as long as we keep that going, I think, anything we can do to cut costs to make more money so that we can spend it elsewhere would be helpful.
Yeah, for sure.
We'll have to think about that.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
Would we ever consider, like, I don't know if it's legal or not, but like a Newtonville area donation, what's the word I'm looking for? Like I can't think. It's past my bedtime.
Like a sponsorship or a donation?
Yeah, something like a drive. Thank you. Big word, drive, like to run a drive. But I do like the freebies, Dana.
I do too, and
You
we
know,
just had a-
I never see the cake, but I think it's great.
Yeah, yeah.
But I'm just,
I think, you know, when we go into the budget, because I'm the treasurer, we're in pretty good shape. So, you know, I think we're okay, and we can kind of discuss it more when we go over the budget. If you guys want us to, you know, bring a little more in, you know, we'll kind of open it up to everyone, what they think.
Great. Well, thank you. Thank you for everything, Dana. Looking forward to next year. Okay, next agenda item is volunteer opportunities at Cradles to Crown. This is Laura. You were looking into this and then you were unable to come to the last meeting. So I'm wondering if this is still something to talk about, or if you have information, it's not too old. If you
Yep.
wanted to report.
All good. So very quickly, a couple things. As I had discussed at a previous meeting, Cradles to Crayons, which is located in Newtonville, has offered to allow us to use their conference room for a meeting in the future. And so as we're thinking of going out into the community and having meetings, and maybe breaking it up a bit, not just having them at City Hall, which is fine, but maybe featuring some space within the village. Cradles to Crayons is part of our village catchment area, and the folks there are fantastic. They also asked if we would be interested in having a day of service sponsored by the NAC. And I said I would bring it to the group. It's easy enough to do. I thought potentially what we should do is when January hits and we've got our new member and we make some decisions on when we're having meetings, et cetera, that maybe we identify a day or date that works for people, and we can go from there. It doesn't have to just be NAC members. It would be a very small group of us if it was. But maybe this is a way for us to expand our reach into the community and build some visibility, not only for the NAC, but for Cradles to Crayons. And we can do it as a community event. So just looking for people's feedback, and it's easy enough for us to get dates on the calendar. What I really just need are some options, more than one option, because that wouldn't be an option, wouldn't it, if it was just one? So a couple of choices would be great, and then we can try and find something and connect that with them. So they do weekdays, weekends. Weekends, as you might imagine, fill up a lot faster. So if we can get a weekday in there, it might be better. But we also know people's schedules are tight.
What are they looking for time? Like a time where they went for like 3-4 hours? Is that what they're looking for? Or, and when
Yeah,
you say the day, yeah, I'm just
Yeah,
curious.
it's
what they're looking
typically
for.
about, you should think about a 3 or 4 hour stint. And they have a little short training when you go in. If you've never done this, I apologize if I'm repeating myself for people who've done this before, but there's a short training. They give you some information about who benefits from what you're about to do, and then they place you into a certain area of their gigantic warehouse, where you start doing specific work. There are some things they no longer do because of the pandemic. But those are, but they now do other things because of the pandemic that they came to find out were more needed. So there were some things like some toys that they used to accept more types of toys. They don't do the toys as much anymore, and that sort of thing.
Is this something that like, I like the idea of having it, hosting it, and then opening it up to the public to bring people in?
Yep.
Is it intergenerational? Like, would they allow kids or?
Oh, absolutely. I
Okay, so it'd be like a whole, it could be
Yep.
family, it could be adults, it could be elder, like seniors. It
Yep.
could be, okay.
It absolutely. In fact, couple years ago, because my daughter and I were looking for some things to do during school vacation week, that we did several community service events during that week, and one of them was at Cradles to Crayons. So and she was in middle school at the time. So she was, I think, in the sixth grade. And it was perfectly acceptable for young people to do. And they assign you to things that are better equipped for a smaller child, or for somebody who might have mobility concerns and that sort of thing. And the day actually that I was touring through the facility, there were some folks there who were in wheelchairs and things of that nature. So they work with people of different abilities.
Great. I think it's a fun idea, and I think, once January comes around, we can talk about it and get something solid tied down. And if you could bring to the January meeting a clear understanding of what kind of times are available, or if they have like a schedule that's already out. I don't know.
I can
how
get
far in
some
advance
dates.
they do it,
Yep.
but we can have some dates to talk about it. And then figure out how to open it up and advertise it and get people.
Yep.
Does anyone have any questions about that? No? Okay. Next agenda item is other issues facing Newtonville. Anything else that we didn't talk about that would fill in that category? Eileen?
So I still have the posters. It never got
Oh.
done because of the rain, and then I was looking for jobs. I will continue to do the signs. That is something I'm happy to be on the side doing. If anybody wants to join me, that's fine. Just let me know. I just don't know when I do it, so I tend to just run out there when I can. At this point, it's on hold, even though we have had amazing weather, but I will take care of it and it will get done. And I see that the signs are still up, but they're starting to get ratty and faded, and some new some new stores have gone in and the signs have gone down. So I'm happy to continue to do that.
Aline, if you want to drop some off for me, or if you want to meet up somewhere, I'm happy to help.
Okay, sounds
Okay.
good. Let's
Seriously.
we'll chat. Okay, thanks. I know you had helped before, but then it was raining like 3 months in a row.
Yeah, I'll melt if I'm out in the rain too long. So
Great. Thank you, Eileen. Councilor Lucas?
Yeah, Jennifer,
Sure.
last year you had acquired, or the NEC had acquired, that Newtonville
Yeah, sign.
Sign. Yep.
What is up with that?
Well, it hasn't been, it's not acquired. We were told we could have it, and then it just kind of like, it got lost in trying to find a place to put it up. We don't have possession of the sign. It's still in that guy's yard, I think.
Oh.
And
His garage, his garage.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we probably have to decide that pretty quickly, and figure out, like I said, Scott Haran had offered to put it on the side of his building, but then, is that appropriate? It's in it's on Austin Street, but it's not his, it's not ours. Like, it becomes weird. And then, the middle of the street, that was another idea, but is that the most appropriate place? We weren't really sure. So it is something we need to talk about.
Okay.
And put on the
What
agenda
happened
for
with the island? I thought we liked that.
I think that one of the concerns I brought up at one point is the island might be a site issue, is that it might create a problem.
Not if
for
it's low.
pedestrians.
We weren't planning on raising it up. Right now, I don't know why the signs are going up at 8 and 10 feet tall. You gotta look up to see a stop sign. That's not safe. I mean,
I think before we do anything is we need some kind of rendering, and it doesn't have to be a $40 million rendering. I mean, we just have to get something that is to scale and be able to say, okay, and even if we took, and I'm gonna just say it out loud, even if we just took a big piece of poster board and make it the size of that thing and go around and say, what about here? What about here? Let's take some pictures. What about here? That way, at least we have a better idea of where it is, how high it should be, that sort of thing, and give ourselves 2 or 3 options that we're happy with, because ultimately, when you install something like that, speaking of cost, there may be a hidden cost to some of this that we don't realize. And we want to have options rather than say, let's put it here. And then we come back and find out, oh crap, that was going to be an extra $14,000 that we didn't.
Well, is Bram's Way an option? because there are
It is, but it would be
events
put
there.
on, it would be put on a building that's not city owned.
But why
So-
not on Graham's Way? There are so many like areas you can, even if it was.
Because
in-
that's, so there's a hidden issue too with footing and concrete and putting up a signpost.
No, I'm
that-
thinking in the beds. We have lots of beds in Graham's Way.
Not in- Where are the beds in Brand Way?
There's trees there. I mean, I don't know size wise.
Like in the back, but that's his property, that's not ours. I know what you're talking about, like back,
Oh, that's his property still?
yeah.
Oh,
Like that,
okay, so
his
that's
property
different.
goes out to like the awning or whatever it is, but, it- with that, so like we're doing the historic signs and getting that thing, and so we were talking about that before, that was like, to get into the ground costs like ridiculous amount of money. So for us to put up a post or sign, it would cost the same amount to dig through, put up the footing, put up the poles, and so there's an added cost to it.
I would volunteer
Good thing I
myself,
have.
not as a member, but as a side volunteer to be in a subcommittee as a whatever, to look into this and come back with, I think everyone's just flat out with stuff that's going on.
Yep.
And I mean, I have more time now because I'm trained and in my job and blah, 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 but I can, look into that. But
Yeah.
and come up with some ideas. I think Laura is a great idea to come up with a rendering appropriate a proportionate size, but just to be able to walk around on a clear day and look
Yep.
at it objectively and take pictures and figure it out. But
Yep.
if you need it to be council members, then maybe you need to create a subcommittee for this, because it's just not going to get
Be
handled.
council members, it could be anybody who takes an interest in it, it kind of gets thrown to the bottom of the pile.
Right, but that's what I'm saying. If someone wants to jump in and be part of it, or if it can be an off council member, I would volunteer, whatever.
Well,
I
you'll-
just think that if we
You have
want.
to tune in, Emily, in January and volunteer when you're there. We'll
Okay,
get you
no,
on
maybe
board.
I will. I mean, as I said,
No, I appreciate that. I'm
Yeah,
not
I
saying
just
that as a
think that if
punishment.
we want action, we need like a Dana to take over, not Dana, but it's like someone like a Dana to take
Yeah.
over the sign. Okay.
Great, thanks. Anything else to discuss for Newtonville? Right, yes, Laura?
I have been asked by a couple of people about, and I know this is potentially something that the city councilors may know about, but there has been discussion among folks who live around here of why it's taking so long for Camilla's to open in the space that was in the old dry cleaner, et cetera. So there's a lot of like basic curmudgeonly list, like kind of feeling of like, why does it take so long for these local, small businesses to do their work? So any insight on that would be great. And then the Oakley Spa building has come up again. And another thing from one of my neighbors wants to know about the bagel place. So bagels, pizza, all the carbs, and then the Oakley Spa.
What
Counselor
bagel
Norton, I
place?
think you raised your hand first. Did you
Yeah,
have
I
an
mean,
answer,
if
Laura?
you have specifics, or if the small business has specifics on something that's an obstacle, that's a problem for them, you should definitely reach out to David Mickley, or Tariq or Susan. But I wouldn't assume that it's something on the city side. I know from other businesses that have come in, particularly when it's a different use, and I know it's the restaurant expanding where the dry cleaner used to be. Sometimes there's electrical, like I know it was some kind of restaurant over in the Masonic Lodge where they were waiting forever for Eversource to give them, to upgrade their power capacity. So maybe it's something that the city is not doing. I just would, ask them, to dig in a little, and if there is something specific that they could use some help from a counselor to make things go more quickly, great. But it may just be one of those things that is taking a while. I believe the Oakley Spa I know it was in litigation, so that's probably what's slowing that down. I don't know where things stand or where that is. And a +1 to the bagel place. I'm waiting for that.
Counselor Lucas?
Where's the bagel place?
Yeah, I just want to follow up
Over
on
in Trail.
They said, the Camellas, yeah, that's the city. I don't think it's anything the city's tying them up with. They're doing their renovation. I know we approved that special permit a while ago and they're still renovating it. I don't know what problems they've run into, but or if they have run into any problems, I really don't know. No one from them has reached out to the city. No one from their team has reached out to the city council asking for any help. And when we approved the special permit, they were absent. Normally, whoever is presenting, who wants a special permit, they attend the land use committee meeting. This was one of the very few in which no one attended it from the Camellas team. Not a manager, an architect, lawyer, whoever, no one. Oakley Spa, that's in court, so it's out of our hands right now. And bagels, who doesn't want to see a bagel place? Dying to see that bagel place.
I think I've been waiting for quite some time now too. It's been.
Now, again, bagel place, Italian food, they're each running in, I have no idea. I can ask Mark Development if they know the status. They might be CC'd on those communications, but I really couldn't tell you.
The thing about Camellas that came up was specifically from some of the parents at the high school because they used to use the Camellas in West Newton for events and things like that. And so there are signs in the window that say there was a pause to some construction at one point. And so that was up. And so I think people were just like, what, I think there was just, you get in the mood for this is the kind of thing we've always done to do a fundraiser or to do a team dinner or to do whatever we're doing. And then the space isn't, the business is no longer available. And, my comment was, well, there's a Camellas in Chestnut Hill. That's not that far, go. But at that same point is, I think the question does come up about what's available, what's not available. So this has all been helpful.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and while we're talking about food and carbs, Donut Villa is closing, if you all didn't know. Or they are.
You just stole my thunder. I was gonna bring that up just as a sad epitaph to this conversation.
Mozzarella sticks, balls. No, that doesn't have too many carbs in it. But yeah.
Was there an idea of why it went out of business? It was just I saw the note up.
They didn't get enough customers for whatever reason. They couldn't draw the customers. The donuts apparently didn't do it. And I know they weren't open late, so they didn't get the late night customers.
Yeah.
But if you called a donut place and you want to be a restaurant too, that's kind of a problem.
Yeah.
I think it had a couple problems like that. It just.
I mean, who knows? Maybe the space was too big. Maybe they're being charged too much rent. I have no idea.
Yeah.
But it was in a great location. And I don't know, hopefully another restaurant goes in there. Maybe we can bring back the.
Yeah, hope so. Hope so soon.
So.
Okay, well, we'll close that agenda. Item number 7 is just meeting minutes. We don't have any meeting minutes to approve because we haven't had meeting minutes drawn up in some time. So we need to put a plan together to reconstruct, I think, some of those meeting minutes through the Zoom links. I don't know do we know if Harvey has any intention of doing that? He left, so I can't even talk to him about that, but it is a problem we need to solve sooner rather than later. Laura?
How many meetings are we behind?
I think we're like 3 or 4 meetings behind.
Okay, why don't you, me and Harvey communicate offline and just say, okay, when can we get this done?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
We didn't have a meeting in November, so that.
Well, I had a meeting in November. No one else was there.
We didn't have quorum. How about this? We didn't have quorum in November, so there wasn't.
Meeting. You should have been there. That's okay. But we turned off the recording, so we didn't technically have a meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's, this meeting which he did or he's doing. There's the September meeting, and I think July is the other one. I don't know about August, but we haven't okayed it. And I think Carolyn, you still owe us one from like 2022, don't you? There's a really old one out there that we need to get through. So if we could just figure out how to figure out how to get that done, that'd be great. So Laura, if that's okay, we'll take that offline. So then if that's it, then we have nothing else to discuss and we're done. Anyone else? I'll call the meeting to adjournment. Any say aye? Let's get out of here. Happy holidays to everybody. We will see most of you back in January. Councilor Norton, thank you so much for being a part of our meetings every month and, being a part of our city council and helping us out and get all the information.
Freak, you're coming
the
back
meeting.
next time. Don't make an indignant face. This is for Emily.
No, she's already on Dana's team. Don't worry about it. And Elise, thank you so much for all of your service for the past 2 years. We're going to miss you. Hopefully you can still come in as a citizen and volunteer for as many things as you can. And we still expect you to run the train in September.
Running the train, and I better get invited to Dana's parties for this Village Day thing. I've been waiting and waiting. I don't get invitations.
Well, now that you're not a member, you don't have to worry about open meeting law, so you can go to
Yeah.
anything anytime you want.
And I do want to say this. I do value all the time that people put into this. I really do, Emily. I know how much everyone works together. There is something that's there's just no close in the loop of communication. I don't know where the problem is. Maybe it's me. Maybe it's me. Maybe I don't care to listen to the 11th hour degree because I just pass out at the end when there's so much talking. So, okay. Thank you all. Merry,
Thanks,
happy
everyone.
everything. Best in New
Happy
Year.
holidays. Happy New Year.
Welcome, David.
Thank you. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Bye, everyone.
Bye,
David,
folks. Happy
Tariq,
holidays.
enjoy your little island adventure there.